welcome. Welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for coming in. And you were our first person to actually make contact after we started the channel, so we're very happy to have you. Could you give you a tiny bit of an introduction to who you are?
I'm Amy. I've been living in Leeds for just over 2 years now. I moved here because my boyfriend lives here. I work for a company based down in Bristol, telecommunications, but I don't know anything about that. So I do all the talent strategy and recruitment side of things internally. I guess you never know what to say about yourself other than your job, do you?
No. But that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll probably get into some of the other things, so that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the process of how you got diagnosed.
Okay.
So the first question is just, when did you get diagnosed with ADHD?
August I thought it was September, but when I checked over today, did a bit of prep and looked, and end of August last year, and then I started my treatment in September.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So, would you mind telling us what age you were when you got diagnosed?
It's 27. I'm still 28 next month, but 27.
Mm-hmm.
So quite late in the game for.
Yeah.
But then also not. Yeah.
Yeah, in the middle of it.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so what made you think about going to get an ADHD diagnosis?
I didn't. I had quite a bad time. I'd come back from travelling the previous year, so May in 2016. And before I went travelling, I always knew what I wanted to do. Gotten really well with my jobs, but I'd always really wanted to go travelling. And so it sounds like a long version of the story, but my boyfriend stayed at home and I went travelling, and the kind of agreement was, right, well, if you go, when you come back, you move to Leeds. And I was like, yeah, that's fair enough if we're going to stay together. Yeah. Got back and I just pretty much fell apart. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I got quite severely depressed. I'd had depression in the past, but nothing like this at all. I ended up getting a job when I came back, a really good job actually in sales, which is what I did beforehand, but it just didn't feel right to me at all, and I just had no sense of direction whatsoever. And it got to the point where I went to hospital one time with A&E, and things were getting really bad, and I had a mental health assessment, and they referred me back to my doctor, my GP, to get a certain type of medication, but they couldn't prescribe it. I had to go to secondary healthcare. Mm-hmm. And I got rejected for secondary healthcare with, obviously, the NHS. They're really struggling with funding, and so I just panicked, and I was in this place where I can't even relate to what I was like then. And fortunately, my partner has private healthcare with work, so my mum just said, I was in a really fortunate position. So I went to go and see a secondary health specialist, and I try not to look into things too much, but I thought I've either got schizophrenia, or because that was the medication that I was supposed to get was for mild schizophrenia. Mm-hmm. And I thought, bipolar. I thought I'd completely snapped, mm-hmm. and I'd never been in a position like that before. And how I am today is so completely different to then. So I went and sat in front of this specialist for 2 hours, and we had a proper chat through. And I noticed when I said that I was mischievous as a child, his interest sparked a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed that, and that was about halfway through. And then at the end, he said, right. We sat back, and I was desperate to get somebody. I'd been stuck for months, and I was desperate for somebody to tell me what was wrong. I knew something was wrong with me. And he said, right, I think you've got ADHD. I was like, what? And it didn't even. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know. He actually said adult ADHD, and I didn't even know adults could get ADHD. And so he told me a little bit about it, and as he was telling me and he was explaining what I'd said that made him think that, it was almost like I knew, even though he had to refer me on to somebody, to a specialist in ADHD to check, I still said, is there any potential it could be bipolar? And he said, potentially bipolar type 2, which is the less severe type. And he said, it could be that, but let's explore this first. And I just went home and I researched it, and I connected with it straight away, and it just answered everything. And I was really excited by that point. So I had to wait about 3 weeks until that appointment, and yeah, went along. And you're supposed to fill these papers in beforehand, and you're supposed to get a parent and your partner or whoever's closest to you to fill it in as well. And I had looked so much into everything. I'd thrown myself into it, but the one thing I'd forgotten to do until the day before was send out these papers. And my mum turned around to me and she went, well, of course you've got it then. And it's like, just considering how much you can throw yourself into something, but you still don't do the necessary steps that any, not normal person, but, most people would. So yeah, fortunately went along and was diagnosed. As a child, apparently I had hyperactive, and as an adult, it's kind of gone into inattentive. I kind of think now maybe I'm still quite hyperactive, maybe I'm a combination, but because I was so depressed at the time, I kind of presented very much as inattentive. So, but yeah, that's how I got diagnosed, and yeah, it's been fantastic ever since.
Cool.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah. So it wasn't actually you thinking about trying to get a diagnosis, it was more that you finally was in front of someone who could point you that way.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'd seen a lot of therapists. I've been in and out of, it sounds so dramatic, I've been in and out of GPs since I was at uni. I've had depression and on and off, and my parents have been really worried about me at times, and friends and stuff, and yeah, I just always knew it was something, and it's really odd thinking about it now that this has answered everything. Quite literally. I know that sounds quite dramatic, but it's quite literally answered everything. Yeah. So it's lovely. Yeah.
So, so the assessment, the whole diagnosis process took about 3 weeks because it was private, right?
Yes, I was very lucky.
What was it like in the actual assessment centre, the assessment day?
Yeah, we just went through. It's really hard to try and backtrack now, because I've really tried to focus on moving forwards and just enjoying this. I know a lot of people kind of talk about they go through a grieving process, but if anything, I kind of look at my parents who I think potentially could have this, and I think, God, they've gone through all their lives and they've had this, and I'm so lucky that I've been in this position even at 27. And I almost, sorry, I'm completely going off on a tangent here as well.
That's right.
And I also look back at my uni years and everything when I was really struggling, and the past couple of years when I've been really struggling, and I'm almost grateful for it, because it makes me appreciate the diagnosis so much more now, because you can see the difference. So that's how I try and look at it anyway. Not always, but for the most part, I'm just really grateful. Not to say that other people shouldn't go through grieving, because I completely get it, but for my own experience, that's how. I've forgotten your question. I do apologise.
Don't worry, that happens. The assessment centre, and then
yes, that was it.
And afterwards. Yeah, so when you actually got the diagnosis, your feelings were basically relief or gratitude? Yeah, definitely
relief. Also, I knew straight away that it would be something that would be very hard to kind of explain to people. And I was quite conscious of that and very careful about who I did decide to speak to, and still am, in all honesty. I want to do more with it, and I want to get quite heavily involved in helping out and raising awareness and seeing how that can, how I can help in that field. But until that comes, I'm really going to keep this to myself, because I'm very conscious that, people can hold it against you. If you tell somebody you've got ADHD, it's like, oh, you're doing that because you've got ADHD, and it's you're lazy, and you don't want that card held to you. But yeah, the assessment was really simple, actually, from what I remember. Went in, showed the papers, and my mum had actually, and it's really funny because me and my mum talked a lot afterwards and before, And she explains that when I was younger, she tried to get me tested for ADHD, and the doctors had told her, no, she's just a naughty kid, you know, she's just a toddler.
Oh.
And then when my parents divorced when I was 7, and my mum moved us up to Preston, and a lot of the problems that I had at school, my poor mum blames it on her, you know, it being a divorced household and a single child household. So my poor mum had a huge amount of guilt that she felt she wasn't performing as a mum, and apparently that's really common, because none of this came out until we started talking about it. I had no clue about any of this at all. We always used to laugh about me being mischievous when I was a kid, and I used to be on reins when we'd go shopping because I'd run off and knock chocolate bars off the counters and stuff. But it was just really interesting to actually go through all the papers with the psychiatrist and a physician. I get all the words mixed up. But yeah, really simple process. He basically wrapped everything up and went through a load of questions and asked me quite a few things. And I was diagnosed with a comorbid, so it was depression along with ADHD. But this is the first time since the medication and everything's really started to take its kick in that I've not been depressed properly for as long as I can remember.
Wow.
Yeah. That is a lovely thing to be able to say.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I'd be ever able to say that. So that's lovely.
I was gonna ask what what's the biggest thing that's changed since diagnosis, but that would probably be it, I guess.
It's yes, but it's actually the critical thoughts is the biggest thing for me. And I was trying to think of a way to describe this, and the best way I can think of it is, have you watched Bruce Almighty before? Yes. And when all the thoughts start coming into his head, all the prayers start coming into his head, and it just floods his head, and he's not able to hear anything else. And Jennifer Aniston thinks that he's proposing, and he's not. He's just got floods. Well, he's trying to do something else, but it gets floods. And that is what every single day was like. But instead of other people's voices, it was mine being critical towards myself. So it just made a lot of things impossible. You know, I would meet up with, I'd meet up with somebody that I'd known for years, and I'd be sitting in front of them, we've been having a chat, and I'd think I'd said something wrong, or not even said something wrong, or I thought I didn't look at them in the right way, or I was making too much eye contact, or not enough, or I was shifting too much, and it was just exhausting. And that's even with somebody that I'm supposed to be on really good terms with. So going out and meeting people that I didn't know that well, or in big crowds, was just exhausting and just not worth it. And I think a lot of people, I used to constantly compare myself to people and think, God, you find it so easy. And people it seemed to come effortlessly to people to be able to be in social situations, and they seem comfortable and relaxed and enjoying it. And I think whilst a lot of people at the surface would probably think that, I look like I'm enjoying myself, but once you got to know me probably a little bit, or if we got in a situation where it would be a one-on-one conversation, it'd become very clear that there's something not right there, and I was a little bit awkward, and so I kind of either retreated and just decided I haven't got the energy for that, which happened a lot, or when I did put myself in that situation, or was in a situation where I had to be there, weddings, stuff like that, it just took so much out of me, and I was so critical towards myself that it was just a horrible situation. And then if you throw alcohol into that, the next day was just torture. I can't describe how awful the next day for hangovers were, and it wasn't the actual hangover itself, it was the negative thoughts that came with everything. And that has probably been the biggest thing that's changed for me. Is I still get critical thoughts, but it's probably reduced by, I'd say, a good 80%, which is insane. And also I'm able to think a lot more logically now, so if I do get a negative thought, I'm able to be a lot kinder to myself and turn it round and say, oh, hang on a minute, you have ADHD, you know exactly what you're doing. And I can't describe how different I feel to how I used to. I really can't.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's the end of this diagnosis video.
Okay.
We'll talk more later.
Yeah, thanks.